The Story of Alice by Amanda Porter. Alice was a good girl. She loved with all of her heart. But Alice fell into the wrong world. She loved the wrong boy who tore her world apart. She took a bite from the apple, and her eyes opened wide. That's when she saw Adam. That's when she learned to fly. But flying wasn't easy, because she flew with broken wings. She flew into the rain and storm. Alice flew without dreams. Adam climbed a lonely mountain and called for her to follow. So Alice flew even higher, never knowing Adam's words were hollow. When she reached the top and found herself alone in the sun, she realized then she only needed her own voice to learn how to run.
Desperately Falling by Nina Soden. Desperately falling down, down, desperately spinning round and round. Life has ups and life has downs, but does life have better rounds? Desperately spinning round and round, desperately turning upside down. People are good and people are bad, but do people have to be so sad? Desperately turning upside down, desperately reaching for the ground. Friends are here and friends are there, but do friends really even care? Desperately reaching for the ground, desperately losing that last pound. Looks are all and looks are not, but do looks give me a shot? Desperately losing that last pound, desperately trying to be found. I'm in here and I'm in there, but how much can I really share? Desperately trying to be found, desperately falling down and down. Look down low and look up high, but maybe life just passed me by. Desperately falling down and down, desperately spinning round and round. Life has ups and life has downs, but does life have better rounds?
How I Let Myself Be Happy in 3 Steps by Chloe Long. Step 1. Stop being a contrarian. Don't mock people for their passions. Don't look at the view count and turn your nose up just because you think the indie version is better. Let yourself listen to One Direction and enjoy it. Let yourself drink coffee and tea, and don't you dare compare them. Let yourself play Dungeons and Dragons every Saturday night without calling yourself a nerd. Let yourself watch anime and The Bachelorette. Let yourself enjoy things. Step 2. Stop looking in mirrors. Don't stare at your own face too long just to connect the dots between imperfections. Stop stabbing your face with needles. Instead, just use a warm washcloth and witch hazel. Take out your contacts and admire the blurry outline of your body. Start looking in the mirror and saying out loud, "You are a human, and being just that is good enough. You have skin that covers bones, and lungs that breathe. You've got cells that are constantly dying and growing, 1 billion at a time. You've got 2 green eyes, and about 38 teeth, which is technically too many, but it's good because yours tend to break. And they may be yellow, but at least they're clean. You brushed them today. You put paste to bristles and bristles to enamel. You did that. Step 3. Celebrate the little things like they're big things. On the days when you can't get out of bed, where the simple task of washing your hair or even opening your eyes seems like too much work to be worth it, Do something small. Spend 10 minutes outside, rain or shine. Eat some fruit. It's not as scary as vegetables, but it's still good for you. If you can't manage to shower, fill up the tub and just sit in the warm water. And every time you do those things, be proud. Because on those days where molehills tower over you, but you still manage to climb the mountain, you deserve to be celebrated. You have the tools to be happy. You enjoy things. You are human. You deserve to be celebrated. And it will be work. And some days you won't be happy. But it'll all be worth it. For the moment when you start smiling without realizing, and start singing in the shower again. Shit, when you start showering again. And you skip through puddles in the rain, and you don't care if your shoes get wet, and you look in the mirror and think, God damn it, I look good when I'm happy.
What Was by Jason M. Summer. What was piles at my door? Every day I must shove against its weight just so I can exit into the world. Every day what was piles higher. Each day I must shove harder. Will there be a day when I am too weak? Will there be a day when it is piled too high? The past is an unfair villain. It is an intangible enemy. It can never be struck down. Yet it can stretch its feelers, its tentacles from its abode of yesteryear and far into the blinding, unseen future. How can I ignore this unseen, ever-present enemy, this what was? I don't dare ignore the horrors of ill-forged or forgotten friendships and painful mistakes, yet their memories taint every new decision with caution and bitterness. Can I really move forward simply severing the tentacles only as they become too tight around my neck? Raising my eyes, the sun is a pale and the sky is an alien turquoise. There are no clouds, nothing to indicate a reprieve from my dried and caked mouth, or my throat raw from screaming my pleas for absolution. I glance behind. Nothing but carnage and despair. I see those who I never should have abandoned walking aimlessly in their own perdition of my making. I see bright, hopeful, shimmering pieces of what was beckoning to me. Yet I know to touch those pieces would only cause deep shame and pain as their jagged, broken edges slice to the bone. I look to my feet. The earth is cracked and dry beneath my dust-disturbing footsteps. Dust swirls as hot desert winds batter my tattered clothes. I hesitantly set my eyes forward. What lies ahead? An empty seafloor awaits, dry and dead. Can the future be as bad as the past? Can it ever change for the better? Pushing forward, I walk into the wind, the dust, the bleakness.
The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, "tapping at my chamber door. Only this and nothing more." Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost along the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow. Vainly I had sought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels name Lenore, nameless here for evermore. And the silken, sad, uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terror never felt before, so that now to still the beating of my heart I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance to my chamber door, some late visitor entreating entrance to my chamber door. Only this and nothing more. Presently my soul grew stronger. Hesitating then no longer, "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore, but the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came rapping, and so faintly you came tapping, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here I opened wide the door. Darkness there, and nothing more. Deep into the darkness peering, long I stood there wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the darkness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, Lenore, which I whispered, and the echo murmured back the word, Lenore, merely this and nothing more. Back into the chamber turning, all my soul within me burning, soon again I heard the tapping, somewhat louder than before. "Surely," said I, "surely there is something at my window lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind and nothing more." Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter in there stepped a stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mien of lord or lady perched above my chamber door. Perched upon the bust of Pallas just above my chamber door. Perched and sat, and nothing more. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling, by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. "Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou," I said, "art sure no craven, ghastly, grim, and gainly raven of the nightly, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, but his answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculptured bust above his chamber door, which such name as Nevermore. But the raven, sitting lonely on that placid bust, said only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing further than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, "Other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before." Then the bird said, "Nevermore," startled by the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken. Clearly, what it mutters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master, whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his song one burden bore, till the tinges of his heart that melancholy burden bore of never, nevermore. But the raven still beguiling all my sad soul into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to thinking, fancy unto fancy thinking, what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, gaunt, and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking, "Nevermore." This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned into my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining, on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, but whose velvet violet lining that the lamplight gloated o'er, she shall press, oh, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed by an unseen censer swung by seraphim, whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. "Wretch," I cried, "thy God has lent thee, by these angels he has sent thee respite and nepenthe for thy memory of Lenore. Quaff, oh quaff this kind nepenthe, and forget the lost Lenore." Quoth the raven, "Nevermore." "Prophet," cried I, "thing of evil, prophet still, if bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest thought to hear ashore, on the desolate, yet all undaunted, on the desert land enchanted, on the house by horror haunted, tell me truly, I implore, tell me, is there balm in Gilead?" Tell me, I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, cried I, thing of evil, prophet still of murder, devil, by the heaven that bends above us, by the God we both adore, tell this soul with sorrow laden, if within the distant Aden it shall clasp a sainted maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, whom the angels name Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Be that word our sign of parting, bird or beast, I shrieked up starting. Get thee back into the tempest, to the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black plume as a token of the lie thy heart has spoken. Leave thy loneliness unbroken. Quit the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never fitting, still as sitting on the pallid bust of Pallas just above my chamber door, and his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming casts his shadow on the floor, and my soul from out that shadow shall be lifted nevermore.